Alright, I am back with another Diablo 4 video, making a lot of these as you can tell. Usually it's kind of going through specific thoughts on a class, specific systems, things like that. But today I wanted to talk about a few things that are like a little the more I play this. Obviously I think you know at this point that I love the game, very addicted to the game. Though the more I play, the more I don't know. I keep running into some things that are a little off to me in terms of how things feel. So I wrote an article about one thing today, which is loadouts. I am really thinking that this game needs loadouts. I understand that this has not really been a traditional part of Diablo history. In Diablo 2, if you put like one wrong stat point in one place, you would essentially like be screwed for the rest of your build. Diablo 3, it was free to respec. You would just change around your runes, change around whatever. Like, it was not very hard. It was very quick. Paragons were just like simple stat boosts, so you would just redo all those however you wanted in like 2 minutes. Diablo 4 is different. It's a much different game in terms of the complexity of things. Like, there's gear, certainly, and it would be nice to swap to an entirely different gear set if you wanted to. Obviously, swapping gear is free. On the skill side, you can refund all and get all your skill points back. It's not that much money. That's, fine once you're at a certain level. And like it goes up in time, but proportionally to how much money you will probably have at any given time, it's not bad. But then we have a Paragon board. And this is the new thing that Diablo has added. You can feel free to critique how bad my Paragon board is, because I'm just sort of freestyling it as I go. But the point is there are a million different little nodes here to do. And, the cost is going to be decently high if I wanted to refund all of these points. But, yeah, this is the problem, is that, you're attaching these different boards. You are deciding exactly what paths to go down. So to switch builds on a single character, it is sort of a nightmare to go through and redo an entire thing. And then if you wanted to switch back to your old build, you would have to do it all over again. So for instance, like, I'm finding that my stun build is not quite as effective as it once was, so I'm thinking about changing to like a Bleed Thorns build. I got this drop, the Fields of Crimson, which is like a pretty fundamentally amazing, unique for a bleed build. It is a little under power at this point, but I can upgrade it also. And, I've been saving various pieces of armor. I need to sort through all these that boost my bleed build. And you can do abilities and stuff. So I'm thinking about doing a grand rework of this to bleed. But, like, what if I try bleed and then it absolutely sucks, and then that was just a giant waste of time? It just feels like the series kind of needs to evolve in terms of understanding the way the game is now. And we never had a Paragon system like this before. So I don't think you can really follow the old rules in terms of what feels good to, like, I know they're trying to echo Diablo 2 and, like, your build choices matter and, like, there's some degree of permanence to it. But, like, in practice, I don't feel like that is really worth the cost here. I would much rather be able to experiment around, and, like, they can still make it cost money if they want me to, to change loadouts. It costs 500 grand or a million or whatever. So you're just not flipping back and forth all the time. I get why it can't be like full Destiny, you know what I mean? Where it's just you're flipping back and forth for free at the press of a button. But I think there's a compromise here, because right now, just hoarding all your alternate gear in your, I have like probably a Whirlwind build and a Bleed build between my inventory and my stash here. And like I just have to manually separate these out by affix and stuff, so even sorting the gear is annoying. I would love for there to be some sort of loadout. They have this for transmog. You can get different loadouts for your transmog looks, which is like the bare bones of basicness here. But it's they don't really have anything else in this regard for your actual build. So that's something I'd like to see. And like, it's kind of related to my next point, is where the longer I go here, the more for myself and my friends playing and the public, like, it really does feel like you're starting to be forced into some very specific, very good builds depending on what class you are. I know that class balance is very hard in a game like this. I'm probably just going to be playing some world boss footage here of our recent very slow world boss kill, but it kind of illustrates the point where like I feel like I'm doing less and less damage proportionally over time unless I am replacing my exact items with top of the line versions all of the time, which is not necessarily possible. And it always just feels like, you know, I should be running the most efficient whirlwind build. Or on Rogue, so many people I've seen complain about that bow just does not feel viable the further and further you go, and you kind of have to switch to a blade build unless you want to be, like, you can use a penetrating shot build or whatever, but it's kind of just woefully inefficient and underpowered compared to a blades build. Same thing with Necromancer. I keep hearing that minions really drop off, so minions are not a very sustainable build. Even after a number of minion buffs, you want to be a Bone Spear, Necromancer, or you need to be a Frost Shard Sorceress and trying to go a fire build. Like, I get that some of this is balanced, and they have been pretty quick with balance patches here, but it really does feel like you're being herded into one or two, or mainly just one very specific build depending on your class, and there's no room for experimentation really because of how hard it is to switch to something else just to try it. Like, if you are better off going for kind of the most efficient build possible, because if you know you're not going to want to change off it because of how complicated that is, you're just going to stick with what you know works. You're going to follow some build guide. Like, I've really been trying, like, my stats, my Paragon points might be a bit of a mess because I've been really trying to do this on my own and not consult guides of the exact maximum, you know, skill layout and Paragon layout and efficiency. But that is becoming pretty apparent pretty early on here. Like, I'm only level 64, and this goes up to 100, but, you know, once you get into World Tier 4 especially, like, I know things are really going to ramp up a notch, and like you just have to start really going with kind of the meta. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. In terms of other things that are bothering me a little bit, I'm starting to run into an issue where if you're trying to 100% the map, it is very odd to have so many side quests that you're unable to find. Like, it's just, you're just sort of bouncing around locations hoping you see that exclamation point when you're, you know, I'm probably 4 or 5 side quests short on most regions. It's not really something in the same vein as a Lilith map where you just consult them. Like, you're never going to find all Lilith sets just randomly, so you just consult a map to find them. The dungeons take a while to do, but you at least know where they are. Side quests, like, some of them could be found using a map, but others are like literally random world drops. Like, one corpse will drop one item at some point where you get the item and then you just take it to a person and they're like, oh, thanks for this, cool, and then that's a side quest. Other times it's missing an entire chain, or if you're missing one exclamation point, that leads into like 6 other missions, so you think you're looking for 6 missions on a map and you're only looking for 1. That's pretty odd. And that's kind of, you know, that's a pursuit I'm doing alongside the more normal pursuits of endgame stuff, and it just, I don't know, that's starting to really bother me as I go for that kind of stuff. Also, I'm curious how people think about the post-50 leveling process, because I understand that Diablo is a long-term pursuit, but man, this 50 to 100 grind seems really long, like exhaustingly long. Like, I know the no-lifers have made it to 100 on one character, but it's just, it feels so dramatically different than past games where it just, I don't think it was anywhere close to this long, and leveling really kind of slows down unless you are doing anything but maybe just non-stop Hell Tides and then non-stop high-level Nightmare Dungeons. Otherwise, it feels like you are getting far less experience than you would otherwise, and you're not making very much progress. It's been so slow. Like, that has been kind of what my main motivator is, to start leveling alternate characters, because it feels like I'm Barbarian. I'm just running the same 2 or 3 activities over and over again, which is not, you know, everyone was running greater rifts in Diablo 4, but that was mostly about like gear min-maxing. That wasn't about like leveling per se. Like, it was not the biggest of challenges to get to, you know, max character level in those. I sort of get the way that works because of the Paragon system, but it also means from 64 to 100, you are also having to replace essentially whatever your build is. You have to replace it 2, 3, 4, 5 times with higher level stuff. Ancestral stuff will drop, etc., etc. So it's a very long pursuit, and for some people that might be like a good thing. And like for me, it may be a good thing. I'm just trying to figure out how I kind of feel about it, because it's just a lot longer, I guess, than I was anticipating. So I've switched to, doing a rogue a lot of the time, because the 1 to 50 process there, especially once you get to skip the campaign, you have a horse, you're just doing side missions and tree things to get to your capstone, that feels a lot more breezy than after 50. And so I feel like I'm going to take rogue to 50, and then maybe I'll start a druid, and like, I feel like I just have to keep switching in order to keep it fresh, because just taking a barb from 1 to 100 feels not amazing, and I'm just, I'm dipping back to it when I can and making some progress when I can, but it's been a little odd. As I said, generally speaking, I really love the game. I really love, farming and world exploration and things like that, but there are some things that are starting to wear on me a little bit now. Maybe I just need to ease up and take a break and, maybe swing back to Destiny for a little while, and if I'm burning out on this, but, but that only makes you feel like you're getting further behind other people and further behind your friends, because everyone is just going so freaking hardcore on this that, like, you're like, oh, you're level 60, like, I'm level 78. Like, I don't know. I guess I can't compare myself to other people, but for my job, I mean, I'm trying to create relevant content, and that means I should be farther than most people, but it's a little hard to do that. Yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts on some issues I'm running into, at least a little bit. I think some of these are fixable. I think meta stuff they're going to be balancing the game a whole lot. I would just worry maybe a little bit about you spend all this time trying to chase, your god roll, ice shards build on sorcerer, and then that gets hard nerfed because it's so much overpowered, like, compared to everything else, like, and then you've just spent all this time farming on stuff that's no longer viable. I foresee a lot of frustration with that, especially when it's not really very easy to just change your build on a dime and switch to something else. So we'll see what they do with that. The leveling stuff, it's a long-term project, but it does feel not like months here. It feels like years at this point. And then they're going to add seasonal stuff and temporary characters on top of this. And if you want to run hardcore characters, that's another thing. So I always knew this would be a lot, but like, it's even kind of more than I was expecting in terms of a time commitment to really feel like you're I guess, achieving the true end game. Because I still feel like I'm just barely in the baby phases of the end game at this point. Yeah. So I guess there's other stuff I could talk about, but I'll probably go into that later. Kind of weird. I feel like that elites and elite mobs feel harder than most of the bosses. The world bosses are very weird. They're just sort of giant HP bars. Maybe this changes in like higher levels in World Tier 4 and stuff, but like, it's the Shava kills. Like, I think I had low health like once, and like 2 people died the whole time. It just took a very long time because no one is doing a terribly large amount of damage. Those are just sort of odd activities now, but yeah, maybe I'll get into that later. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.